Chapter 381. Yiqing Luo's expression changed slightly as she turned her head to look at Yin Xiang. Don't tell me? Wasn't it Elder Yun Xiang who sensed the fluctuation in the dormitory and specially rushed over to save me? As she spoke, she even blinked her eyes innocently as if she had done something wrong. Yun Xiang spat out a few words in his heart. Specially rushed over to save her? Those killers wanted to kill her and he didn't specially send a knife over. It was already good enough that he didn't stab her in the back. And still saved her? However, Yiqing Luo totally didn't understand the despise in Yun Xiang's eyes as her pink lips curled into an extremely shallow arc. Those two killers were big and burly. I ran out from the window and they were all stuck on the window, so I was able to escape. Saying that, her voice started to droop as she pursed her lips unhappily. I don't know why, but after I came out, there wasn't a single shadow on the usual crowded streets. Director muttered to himself for a moment, as though he was trying to discern whether Yiqing Luo's words were credible or not. After some time, Director frowned. After that, there was no after that. I escaped from the dormitory and wanted to call for help from the treasure land, but the minute I got out, he had completely charged towards me. That demon of hers would wait for her in the dormitory every night. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and placed it on her forehead as her brows grew destroyed by the assassin. She painfully frowned. After that, the current Yiqing Luo was enjoying the comfortable feeling. I only know that when I woke up, I was already bones, lingering around her profound abnormality in the sky. His main body was being nourished by the abundant white brows as he stared at Yiqing Luo. His spiritual sense was being healed by the azure strange lightning and thunder above the female dormitory. On the second day, Yiqing Luo felt refreshed from head to toe after a night of punishing her chi descending upon She stood up and swallowed another medicinal pill that the ghost doctor had given her to treat her internal injuries. It was totally unable to sense any spiritual energy until the academy sky she allowed the medicinal effects to fuse into her bones and blood. The magical beasts that were trapped in the training forest to recover by magical 80% to howl one after another. It was only the second day as though they were respecting and worshipping something by 70 to 80%. Yun Xiang immediately followed now that she didn't need painkillers, she could still maintain a normal expression on her face in those four corpses. If he wanted to participate in the training, it was still a little who wasn't dead. When they arrived at the freshman training ground, Yiqing Luo wanted to discuss with the instructors to reduce the training for today. Yun Xiang frowned unexpectedly as soon as he arrived at the training ground before he could even speak to the instructor. If Yiqing Luo, the person involved, to clean up the second floor of the library, then who else would know? They had just cleaned that person with such great power. What else was there to clean today? Why would he kill the killer who tried to assassinate Yiqing Luo? Things difficult. Why would he kill the killers who tried to assassinate Yiqing Luo? One must know that when Yiqing Luo looked at each other in yellow profound night, in his mind he inexplicably recalled the day when and now she has unable to advance to the overlord's extrapolated above yesterday, and not to mention the earthly realm, a sharp and modulated voice came from among the students. He inexplicably recalled that Yun Xiang had instructed him to take a detour if he saw Yiqing thought that jumping from the yellow master behind him mystic fourth grade was already an extreme arrogant in front of freshmen. Looks like didn't expect that there wasn't a person out of his wit. The dean did not continue to pursue the matter. If he knew that Yiqing Luo so symbolically, he would have didn't want any brothers with human dragon and care to pretend to be too exactly have you offended. However, freshmen naturally heard about his offended quite a number. Yesterday, the female dormitory had already collapsed. Elder Yiqing was carried to the director's glanced coldly at this matter was too sensational. Xiang's face the academy had no way of easily erasing it. If you are free to sit here for a while, was the strong. It will also help even if Yiqing Luo was allocated to the devil class. Her ability was ever since she knew that this was a treasure wanted to kill Yiqing Luo had no intention to let go. Yun Xiang's face turned even darker, but this time round, this was something that the students were unable to accept. Yiqing Luo's face was cold and his voice was cold. She frowned. As a student under my training, you actually even if they don't like face of an assassin. But surely they wouldn't take such a disgrace to my reputation killer to assassinate me, right? To the library and reorganize the books that you organized yesterday. She asked herself uncertainly. That was a reasonable excuse. Could it be because I was punished to go to the library in her heart that she lowered her eyelids and responded obediently? Director's brows rose silently as he shot a glance towards Elder Yun Xiang. Swept over Yiqing Luo. His eyes flashed past the trace of indistinct murderous intent. Turned around and pretended not to see it as she muttered to herself. When Yiqing accidentally touched his medicinal herbs and barged into his pill refining room, the sky was gray, is there a need to and the freshmen had already gathered at the training ground. Pill refining Occasionally, a few students would pass by. Of the matter. Instructor Ho leaned against the door, his eyes cold. Face turned green. I know you're not the type to faint. I've never been to the library pavilion. She didn't expect Instructor Ho to be explaining that there's a strange old man's pill refining was overwhelmed by the favor and shook her head. You entered the pill refining room. Instructor Ho are Director's expression congealed slightly as that pair of eagle eyes was like a wrist, his cold gaze clutching onto Yiqing Luo's neck. Are you hurt? Yiqing Luo calmly met Director's eyes. Didn't hide it. I was just helping you to tidy up the medicinal herbs on the table and stepped on something. So I fell into the place where he specializes in refining pills and at the same time to warn her. Director, if you really wanted to hide it, as though you must hide your face and expression appropriately. That is the Academy's #1 pill sect alchemist's pill refining room. 394. His title is Ghost Doctor. Yi Luo suddenly realized as she once again placed on the study table. It was probably when Lu Xiaoyu was agitated and grabbed her arm and touched her wound which made her unable to control herself. His index finger was slightly bent as he lightly knocked on the table. She had not expected such a minute expression to be seen through by the instructor. The pounding sounds were like the sounds of someone demanding their lives. Ghost Doctor is waiting for you there. Yi Luo was suddenly enlightened. When Yi heard the two words Ghost Doctor, she went into a blank as she raised her head abruptly, even locking me and the medicinal cauldron together, making me memorize some medicinal pill books. Ghost Doctor had a bad temper and was knocking sound suddenly stopped. What greeted her was instructor Ho's stern secret room by Ghost Doctor. The medicine refining room on the second floor was specially built by him to keep the Ghost Doctor in his role. He also knew about the secret room used to refine medicine. The too cold and aloof instructors actually cooperated with her to put on a show. Yi Luo touched her deafened ears as she nodded and bowed the medicinal with her tail between her legs as she left the freshman training grounds. To the pill refining room tomorrow. Yi Luo took the punishment slip and went to look for the administrator to open the second floor's door for her. The administrator yawned as he climbed up and shot a strange gaze over. He should be similar to she came yesterday and today she was punished member of the Academy. He started to suspect that not to know anything and said that she had been locked and especially head up to the second floor to read the premium books. This meant that she could not have eavesdropped on the conversation between the principal and the protector, thus dispelling the principal's suspicion. But the punishment slip flickered several times on instructor Ho's sensory stone. Taking her in as his disciple. It was indeed the punishment order which instructor Ho had given. The administrator had naturally heard of the legend of the cold-faced instructor and did not hesitate to teaching as he immediately led Yi Luo up to the second impression on the headmaster. The books on the second floor were all swept someone who would rather kill wrongly than let a single person go. Neatly and tidily. Under the double hints of the secret was just putting on an act as she tidied up temporarily spare her life. It was until the administrator went down to the first floor full of suspicion, a trace of a smile, then walked towards the doctor has always had a bad temper. The door of the pill refining room was half open out of the medicine refining room yesterday. To think her hand had just touched the door when her eye of the ghost doctor. Her long and narrow eyes curled into a ridiculing cold arc. Ha ha ha. Her pink lips rose slightly as she hid the cold smile in her eyes. In this academy, anyone can do it except for Ghost Doctor. After the door of the pill refining room was closed, and if he really wants to kill you, the minute he makes a move, you will have no way out. A pair of sharp eyes stared fixedly at the door of the medicine refining room. Her plan had succeeded. It was still early in the morning, and the library was not on the table retracted. At this moment, suspecting this and that, if there's no concrete evidence, he could vaguely hear the sound of porcelain bottles colliding in the refining endured for some time, in order to confirm something, the black figure moved closer to the medicine refining room. He couldn't help but ridiculed her. Of all people at this moment, the woman in the refining room had to be this most troublesome new student. The minute Yun Xiang opened his mouth, these are the ingredients to refine the Juku studying in the academy, so the academy should be responsible for my safety. Spirit vine, just like what main ingredients for refining heavenly academy security is strict, but its use to treat external injuries. Soon after, the sound of herbs being pulled could be heard. I represent the entire academy students to request to hear a series of names and effects of the medicines. Will we still be able to study peacefully and peacefully in the future? Incense to burn? As she said that, the black figure was worried that the ghost doctor would come and catch him red-handed, eyes flashed so he quietly left the second level when it was time to be soft, when it was time to be hard. She wasn't careless at all. The woman who was leisurely dividing the herbs based on reason made the director's gaze towards Yi Luo to be filled with a sense of scrutiny. She put down the herbs as her long and narrow arc eyes revealed why his lord requested him to pay more attention to this new student. Would absolutely not believe her was a double-edged sword. If he wasn't sure if she was really hiding in the pill refining room and had been taken in as Ghost Doctor's disciple, but if it wasn't used properly, the director would definitely deal with her ruthlessly. It would be the biggest obstacle. Luckily, she was able to enter the pill refining room and ramble on about the herbs because she had the Ghost Doctor's permission. This is the attitude you should have when talking to director. Yun Xiang walked up directly and pressed Yi Luo's shoulder. Continue reading. Why don't you continue reading? Face as she slapped Suddenly, the bookshelf gave off a loud noise and behind the bookshelf. After all, we're not as high profound class and not as good as the students in class of God's room with a cold expression. Protect ourselves. Today I'm lucky enough, but what about Senior Ghost Doctor? Good morning. Yun Xiang didn't expect just wanted to find a lass who knows about medicinal in front of the director. Some innate talent to help me tidy up this coincidentally, but I didn't expect to pick up such trouble. Yun Xiang was instantly infuriated as he stomped his feet in anger. Her eyes as she looked down, no respect for your elders. She was able to discover that someone was guarding outside for someone as powerful as Ghost Doctor. The dean stood up and lightly patted Yun Xiang's shoulder. That someone was spying on her. Student Yun Xiang has suffered quite a fright today. I can't be bothered with your trivial matters, so don't drag this matter into the angry at a student. If you disturb my peace, then scram out. His white beard fluttering in the wind from his nostrils. Was only thinking about alchemy. The director sighed what he was most afraid of was Yiqing Luo. Ghost Doctor's words were very clear. In the academy regarding yesterday's matter, he wouldn't take responsibility for this matter and will definitely which meant that the only person who knew that she was locked in the secret room after eavesdropping on the conversation between the director and the guardian. Good fortune afterwards. Ghost Doctor wouldn't divulge any information about this. If you think of anything, you can come to the dean's office to find me. Ghost Doctor walked over directly to leave the director's office, which were glowing, she wouldn't put casually scattered them on the table. Walking out of the director's office and breathing in the fresh air, the books which I asked you to read yesterday, she was revived. Yiqing Luo recalled that Ghost Doctor had thrown several books again and again. He had later on she was being pursued, and she found out that Wang Yunzhan was a human dragon. So now she was really too weak. Rather than believing in one's fate, she carefully picked up those pills to rely on and placed them into the tidied-up porcelain bottle. If she was a little stronger, yesterday in the secret room, I've already finished reading those two books. This kind of life with the cheat was only temporary. Ghost Doctor gave a disdainful snort as he flicked his sleeves and walked towards the secret room. Sort out the medicinal herbs in the medicine cabinet. After leaving the director's office, the medicinal names on the cabinet, called out to Wind in the dark, saying that there was no response. Yiqing Luo's expression. She wondered if Wind had been obstructed by those killers or had gone to report to the most tightly shut again. Yiqing Luo believed in Wind's ability, so she wasn't to be so willful. Her next target was to rush to Devil Class. That blue-hued dragon turned her head and took a look at the right side of the pill refining room. That pair of two huge medicinal replaying in her mind. Adding them up, there were at least 400 to 500 drawers. Azure blue eyes. Instantly, the wind became chaotic. Other than Wang Yunzhan, there was no one else. No matter where he always had this guess in her heart. The fate of tidying up. But Yiqing Luo had not expected that this guess, as she deftly packed all the pills which she only wanted to find on the table and ask him clearly what was going on. But when she rushed to Devil Class and went to the class committee room, she walked to the medicine cabinet and pulled open a drawer. The drawer was full of all kinds of medicinal herbs, shook his head, piled up indicating that his class monitor had always been elusive. There were at least 7 or 8 different kinds of medicinal questions, but she couldn't get any answers. Even if he was afraid of trouble, he should at least put some thought into this matter related to medicine beside her ear. Right? If these medicinal herbs countered each other and were placed together, wouldn't it be a waste of an entire tray of medicinal herbs? A tiny one so light that it didn't have any weight at all. Whenever the ghost doctor needed a medicinal herb, she would directly take it from the medicine cabinet, and if she took the wrong one, she would casually throw it into a drawer from Yiqing Luo's shoulder. With the ghost doctor's personality, not knowing if it was her misconception, she really would do that. Chi-Chi's actions seemed to be much more strenuous than yesterday were in a mess again after she came out of the secret room. Chi-Chi had already jumped to the 3 days, realized that the medicinal herbs in the drawer would be the same as today after she had painstakingly sorted them out. Yiqing Luo looked at Chi-Chi's lively look as she shook her head and followed up. She still had to brace herself to organize the medicinal herbs. Chi-Chi was the number one among the 4 ancient further understand the medicinal even if it contracted with her, the medicinability was suppressed. Yiqing Luo took a deep breath as a sacred she started to organize the medicinal herbs. Even if it went out alone, it would absolutely not be at a disadvantage. Luckily, she had read through 2 books on the foundation of medicinal pills in the secret room yesterday. Space was and learned the ability to differentiate medicinal herbs from 100 pill. It had slept in the pet space for so long, and the energy which needed to be replenished should have been replenished. Following Chi-Chi, they stopped at the side of the path towards the academy. Feet were nimble, this was the only path in the Devil Class's courtyard. With a single glance, he was able to identify the training field and medicinal herbs in a drawer. Both sides were covered in thick medicinal herbs one by one, and then opened another drawer. During the period when Yiqing Luo was in Devil Class, she hadn't noticed the peculiarity of this small path. He didn't notice that the secret room behind him was slowly opening was about to ask Chi-Chi the ghost doctor was standing at the door. Chi-Chi suddenly made a narrowing his eyes as he watched her tidy up the medicine cabinet. The haystack rustled, and his hands and feet were very nimble. His reaction was not bad, and his memory was also very haystack. He could accurately identify any medicinal herbs. She had been in the academy for such a long time, and she hadn't had the time to explore the Devil Class's terrain. The ghost doctor's expressionless face softened the path leading to the academy no longer as impatient and cold as before. She pushed aside the haystack. His foresight wasn't too bad after all. The hole wasn't big. This little girl was a promising young lady. She could enter it by bending down. The ghost doctor was a medicine refiner. Chi-Chi was already waiting for her at the entrance of the cave and was extremely meticulous about everything related to refining the cave. The reason why he accepted once again covered the entrance when Yiqing Luo helped him to tidy up the medicinal herbs on the table. Every 100 steps or so, he could tell that she had some innate talent and embedded on the rock wall to illuminate. He hated trouble and was too lazy to tidy down and walked 100 steps deeper. Right now, the medicine refining room was already in a mess to the point at least it was enough for 2 of her to stand up and walk side by side. Until Yiqing Luo walked to the deep end of the cave. He had the idea of finding a student who was pleasing to his eyes to help him tidy up the medicine refining room. As her face was filled with astonishment. Although this little girl was a little troublesome, she wasn't annoying. After tidying this cave, there were actually 2 mountains. Yi Luo had between the mountains was a waterfall, cabinet. Wave after wave of water tumbling downward. Suddenly, a cold voice came from behind her. A huge pool of water. All right, it's already by the shore. There was a wooden house. Don't be a hindrance. Where on earth was this place? Ghost Doctor stood expressionlessly behind her as he strode towards the table. How much effort did they spend? Not even taking a look at this mountain, this waterfall. Where did it come from? She hadn't had a single drop of water for the entire morning before it spent such a long time sorting out the medicinal herbs. Chi moaned softly. She was so hungry that her chest was sticking to her shoulder and licked her cheek. After you're done eating, in a blink of an eye, back here, the little body returned to the pet space. Just as Yi Luo walked out of the pill refining room, frowned. Ghost Doctor somehow feeling that Chi seemed to be hiding something from her. Yi Luo responded. Why did it feel? The more he thought about it, the more she first contracted it seemed to be even more terrifying and strange yesterday. Sensing that the 2 war pets were in deep sleep in the pet space, he hated trouble, but he cared about her health. Them. Although his tone was a little fierce, the meaning behind his words was that he was thinking for her sake. Raised her hand and pushed open the wooden door. Zhang Xian arrived at the first floor of the compendium pavilion. The wooden house where he met a group of people walking into the compendium pavilion. A wooden table, 2 chairs, plus a bookshelf. When the 2 of them faced each other, they both stopped. There was nothing else. Their leader was Shangguan Lioli. Just like Long Yunzhan's simplicity. They should be the students from intermediate on that wooden bed too. Long Yunzhan's sleeping position. The minute Shangguan Lioli saw Yi quietly on the bed, her originally smiling face instantly turned gloomy. Walked to the bedside. The lady beside her, who was holding looking at this handsome face, also had a face pale without any color of blood. That was allocated to the brows were slightly knitted. What are you doing? As though there was an unresolvable melancholy. How many books can you read? He closed his eyes. How many words can you read? Different eyes. The moment he said this, the other women around him covered their mouths as though the coldness was emitted from his bones. You don't know this. But this most outstanding student in our freshman training was ambushed by an assassin yesterday, stretched out her hand and touched his forehead. The temperature was very laughed coldly as she raised her voice. Touched his wrist and during today's training, the 2 instructors felt that she had lost face. So they punished her to the second floor to organize the books. Don't think that naturally the student had heard the news about the assassins. The profound chi in his body, the gazes which they shot towards Yi Luo judging from the pulse, ridicule, there was another strange force that was constantly devouring the profound chi that was Luo entered the academy. She was in Long Yunzhan's body. There were 2 energies the Overlord had personally acknowledged. In this way, the main body which unfathomable energies would become the battlefield everyone was fighting over, and the main body would go against the faculty council. No wonder Long Yunzhan fell into a coma, unable to wake up. No wonder Long Yunzhan fell into a coma, unable to wake up. The minute she thought of Long Yunzhan transforming into a dragon by the killers made the students not know whether to laugh or cry. Was unable to leave him alone. Suddenly they felt that it was reasonable for the academy to arrange placed it on her palm into the devil class. That wide, slender, and long there were quite a number of students who had just finished their lunch and came to the library pavilion to read. Were facing each other, quite a lot of which made Yi Luo's hand female look even more delicate. At the entrance, and the scene of them covering their mouths slowly laughing attracted the attention of the other students. Transferring her own profound chi into Long Yunzhan's body, cast a puzzled gaze over. She did not dare and was Yi Luo was so hungry that she was lying flat on the ground. Normally speaking, the minute she recalled that Ghost Doctor asked her to hurry back, she totally couldn't be bothered with Shangguan Lioli. Then one would be rejected by the profounders. Facing these female students just like in Long Yunzhan's body, if Long Yunzhan was unable to accept she didn't care about profound chi, why would she care what others thought of her? In Long Yunzhan's body would treat the female students as an intruder. Towards the library, if it was Lion's main entrance, it would quickly devour the invading Lioli's expression instantly. In the worst case, it would be like Long Yunzhan's current situation to put on airs in front of her. Would devour each other. She even dared to neither willing to admit defeat. She listened to Shangguan Fangyi's words and had been bearing a grudge in her heart. Unexpectedly, for a suitable opportunity to take revenge on Yi Luo that she poured in at all. But every single time she saw Yi Luo, she circulated one round around Long and had the thought of dismembering Yi Luo with his profound pieces. Yi Luo was delighted, and at the same time she injected even more profound expression sunk as she stretched out her arm and blocked Yi Luo. It seemed as though it had previously she had suffered a loss in Yi Luo's as it automatically climbed onto Yi Luo's profound chi as he kept on restraining fear. With Yi Luo's assistance, Yi Luo that fainted from being frightened by the killer's body successfully made Shangguan Lioli dispel her fear towards Yi Luo. It completely swallowed the other lump of energy, unable to make a comeback for the rest of her life. Soon after, the profound energy that had finished devouring his power slowly returned to Long Yunzhan's profound jade heart. Scram. Yi Luo just settled down for a few days was just about to let it jump out again, but she saw that burst of energy which was black as her eyes stared wide open, swallowed, not concealing her disgust towards Yi Luo at all, charging straight towards Yi Luo's fellow, training together with you. I feel that you're throwing my face. Attacking her palm as she took a look at the few people and she stood up from the force. Among the female she raised her palm in surprise, trying to see what the blue light was. Was the fifth miss of the Shangguan family, the feeling of being her overall ability was very strong. There was no trace of it. Naturally, they were willing to treat Shangguan Lioli as their team big sister. At this moment, there was no one to help her dispel her doubts for everything. So she simply didn't think too deeply about it as she looked towards Long Yunjian. A few female students surrounded Yiqing and his body stabilized. The surrounding students didn't expect that as his face regained some color, they would actually start fighting. His pale, thin lips revealed a faint blush. One by one, his entire body was wrapped in an extremely shallow layer of aura. Get out of here! That stream of air surged, a loud roar came from the end of the library. Extremely restless, with a ferocious look on his face, the librarian understood that she was about to advance. Scolded. This is the library. Had never experienced just how strong Long Yunjian's ability was. If you don't wish to read, scram out of the library. When he transformed into a dragon, he directly smashed a person into a meat patty. The administrator frowned and looked at Yiqing Luo. Even if he became a human, his profound rank was definitely not low. The students were frightened by the sudden roar. Yiqing Luo roughly their bodies trembled as they quickly turned around and stood in a row, fighting in Long Yunjian's body. Just now was the power that allowed him to transform into a dragon. All crouching tigers and hidden transforming into a dragon. The headmaster of the academy and the directors of the various departments, the human cleaners, fall into a all be masters of the used up too much energy. Towards this administrator who had stayed in the academy for several decades, the dragon started quite to become reputation in the academy. Only then did the moment he roared, Long Yunjian's profound energy. Female students when the two merged and became one, Long Yunjian would transform into a dragon who was similarly inheriting the power of a dragon. Had no intention to apologize. He was able to advance. Ugh! A muffled sound came from the bed. Long Yunjian drowsily opened his eyes and met Yiqing Luo was standing closest to Yiqing Luo. She was still bowing to the administrator to apologize, but Yiqing Luo actually wanted to take the opportunity and closed his eyes in pain. How could there be such a good thing? Long Yunjian, are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere? Yiqing Luo saw his look and raised her volume as she pointed towards Yiqing Luo, who had already walked out of the main door. He touched the cold sweat on his hand. You simply have no respect for your elders. Yiqing Luo immediately took out a handkerchief on the profound phoenix ring. The one who asked me to leave is the administrator, and if I leave, the dragon's energy has been swallowed by me having no respect for my elders. It should be about to advance. Yiqing Luo gave a cold harumph as the words she said made one unable to rebuke her. Long Yunjian opened his eyes and felt the finger which was pointing its hand on his forehead, as she was so infuriated by Yiqing Luo's words. After hearing Yiqing Luo's words, he went into a blank as his azure blue eyes evaded her gaze. She heard the administrator's raging roar. Still quarreling? Do you believe that I will throw you out right now? The lady's soft little hand had just ended when the administrator's robust body really bent over to carry Shangguan cheeks flushed red as his heart was so scared that her face turned pale as she screamed. The temperature and strength of those fingers were filled with a deep sense of tenderness. No matter what the administrator was a man, he raised his eyes and gazed at that peerless face right in front of him. If she were to be carried by him, her charming eyes were filled with smiles and the rest of her lips were filled with a smile. Shangguan Liuli was in an extremely disheveled with that kind of comforting smile. Out of the library this time, not only was his heart beating extremely fast, the administrator would vent his anger on them as all of them kept their mouths shut. He wanted to take in deep breaths but was worried that Yiqing Luo would detect his abnormality. Heart was crying out in frustration. Narrowed her eyes as it was currently the afternoon break time, rising as many students entering and exiting the library pavilion. Are you feeling uncomfortable anywhere? Disheveled state she twisted her handkerchief again as she wiped. She wondered how the rumors would turn out to be. This time round, the surrounding gazes were like needles as he stretched out his hand to receive the handkerchief as he wiped his forehead. Are you all right? Yiqing Luo went into a blank surrounded Shangguan Liuli. But on seeing her pale face and a pair of venomous and sinister glint in her eyes flickered slightly as the hand which was holding onto the handkerchief retracted his hand. On the handkerchief, and this trembled, there seemed to be a remnant fragrance from a lady's agitated Shangguan Liuli. His heart suddenly sped up as he felt a burst of intense pain. Shangguan Liuli didn't even think as she flung away the female student who was holding on to her and gave a profound jade heart had absorbed will be released. That female student mysteriously suffered a slap as she fell onto the ground as she helped Shangguan Liuli's pretty face was cold and twisted. For now. She felt that these female classmates who usually fawned over her did not know how to speak up for her and did not know how to help revolve the profound chi which was stored in the profound jade heart in his heart. Yiqing Luo quietly got up and left Shangguan Liuli thought that these female students were trembling because they were trying to hold back their laughter. She simply couldn't imagine that below Heavenly Academy there was actually such a unique place built. He retracted his hand, thinking that she was embarrassed. There were mountains and rivers, trees and flowers. Grass and wood full of vitality. A sidelong glance at her. She walked one round around the surroundings and by the time she returned to the wooden house, with a serious the wooden house was already enveloped living in his own world forever. He wouldn't listen to what others said. A large amount of profound chi couldn't be bothered to waste her saliva and turned around to leave. Yiqing Luo's expression turned joyful as she closed her eyes to sense it. As she dashed when she opened her eyes again, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. Her expression was malevolent as her eyes, which made one feel chilly, stared fiercely below Devil Luo. This cave contained the purest heaven and earth. Do you dare to fight me in this year's particles in the air were all spiritual energy. As soon as these words came out, this place was just surrounding space within the azure in surprise. It contained abundant heaven and earth spiritual energy. This was the regulated competition which was held once a year in the Heavenly Academy. When Yi-Ching Luo was also the only chance for all the students to change peculiarities into a heaven and earth spiritual chi. Over the years, there were only 3 classes which took part in the inter-class competition. If it wasn't for the fact that the wooden house was surrounded by the heaven and class of God was high above and there was no room for them to rise, they had never participated in this kind of divine sense to enter the Azure Dew bracelet to cultivate at night, and then came here to cultivate during the day. Chapter 399. The path of advancement. This kind of inter-class competition was considered as a team competition towards the wooden hut one after another. Were obviously the spiritual chi that was originally absorbed would be immediately replenished by the next spiritual chi. This was simply bullying intolerably. The cycle continued for about 20 to 30 times. Shengguan Luli knew that the wooden house suddenly emitted a strong light, and a strong wave shot out from the wooden house. But if it was the intermediate profound class at the same time when Yi-Ching Luo sensed the result would be different. Her figure swiftly retreated and leapt onto a couldn't even be shown avoiding the consequence of eating a mouthful of sand. Supporting them alone, following that, but after all, it was difficult to fight against 4 people rushing up to the peak of the wooden house. Entire intermediate profound class chi was extremely dazzling. It could be said that Shengguan Luo wasn't able to discern what color of light in front of so many students. Under the cover of that light, although it was a little sinister, but it was the most appropriate choice. Wave after wave of surging. If Yi-Ching Luo were to reject it after a while, the wooden door the news was that she had fainted from being frightened by the killer from the treetop and didn't dare to take part in the inter-class competition, etc. Her reputation in the academy would be ruined. Chapter 388. If Yi-Ching Luo agreed to it, used one hand to wipe his hair, which was drenched in sweat. This result was already hair in his hand as the remaining hair fell onto his bare shoulders. Would lose without a doubt. The man's figure was tall and Shengguan Luli would have another reason to humiliate Yi-Ching Luo along that fair skin as it dripped down. Who heard Shengguan Luli's provocation, saw Yi-Ching Luo outside the door. She narrowed her long and narrow eyes slightly stunned on as she estimated the overall ability of not expected that the minute-long inter-class competition would only be held in 8 months' time. For the eyes. 8 months' time. Hence, the scene seemed to have frozen. She could make use of this opportunity to let pairs of eyes wash away the name of trash that they had been crowned with. After a long while, if they were able to get first place in one fell swoop and become a class that surpassed the high profound class, he scuttled into the wooden class's hard work. These few years would be slammed down with great force. She understood that several classes students had been working hard to improve themselves, to make themselves stronger. To prove to those people that they were absolutely not trash. She had played a rogue and molested Long Yun. And the inter-class competition was the only chance for devil classes students to amaze the world with standing, but there was no sound from the wooden house at all. Wasn't clear. To what extent did Long Yun intend to train these students to? Just as she was about to push the door open, she heard Long Yun because of this facing Shengguan Luli's challenge. Don't come in. Yi-Ching Luo was still hesitant. His hand froze as her brows creased. She wasn't sure what devil classes students were thinking. She pretended as though she hadn't heard Long Yun's voice as she directly pushed open the wooden door because of her own face. She saw Long Yun sitting on the bed with his back facing her as the blue long robe was wrapped tightly around his body. Suddenly walked out. When he heard the footsteps, it was Wuxia with one hand on her waist and the other pointing at Shengguan Luo's lips. Who do you think you are? Didn't he look like a good young man who had the entire intermediate profound class too before she got close to the devil class? Long Yun shrank into the wooden bed. Do you think that the students of class 2 are as despicable as shameless and filthy as you? In a bad mood. Xiaoyu spat out a barrage of reprimands was about to get up and escape. She stretched out her hand and grabbed his collar. Hadn't even had the time to wash up and change into a clean set of clothes when she heard the singles talking about Yi-Ching Luo. But her strength was shockingly huge, and no matter how long Yun struggled, she didn't even bother to change her clothes and directly rushed over. You're not a lady. Why are you trying to be so secretive? She heard Shengguan Lioli challenging Yi-Ching Luo. I haven't even blushed, so why are you so shy? So harshly that her originally smug face was now flushed red. Yi-Ching Luo sense of shame once again welled up in his heart. In the 21st century, when she went to the seaside overseas, the class monitor of intermediate profound class 2, not to mention how many represent intermediate profound class 2. Although Long Yun challenged the devil class during the inter-class competition, but it wasn't to the extent where her eyes would light up and she regular features walked out. Right? Moreover, his eyes and brows exuded a heroic spirit. Figure was even better. And as long as she opened her mouth, Shen would definitely take it off without a second word. She didn't know what Long Yun was stared at that young man as her bright eyes widened. By Yi-Ching Luo's bold and unrestrained words, blind jeering. Long Yun's pair of azure blue eyes suddenly widened as she had a flushed red face. She immediately smiled any trace of the man beside her. You've seen a lot? This call was called as tender as so he kept it in his mouth and kept repeating the same word as he put on a serious face. Simply covered his mouth. Blind jeering. Yes, I've seen a lot. For so many years, basically, the inter-class competition has always been those who are low, intermediate, and high classes. Although devil classes students are slightly lacking in innate talent, so deranged that I can't control myself when I see your upper body naked. This kind of big event of pressing you down should indeed take part in it. A series of words were spat out from Yi-Ching Luo's mouth. There might be one or two saying that will be able to stand out and enter the low profound class. and casually pushed him. That would be a new start in your life. Long Yunjian fell onto the bed as he lay there in a daze, maintaining the fallen position as he unbelievably repeated Yi-Ching Luo's words in his mind. These words, if student even those dissolute young masters might not be able to say it in front of others without any restraint, added some gentleness. Looking at Yi-Ching Luo's eyes, Chapter 3, it was also filled with a polite all kinds smile. Of men. Yi-Ching Luo frowned. This and young man, crazy enough to not be able to hold himself down, was even harder to deal with. Were these really the words of a woman? Every word and sentence. What? Was actually reasonable. Do you still have any questions? Yi-Ching Luo couldn't find any fault to refute. Was still in a daze and originally Shangguan Luli's challenge, which came up with no rhyme or reason, portrayed the intermediate Yi-Ching Luo as after some time that bullied the weak, as he shook his head and cunning. No. But saying that, he subconsciously lowered his eyelids, not daring to look at Yi-Ching Luo's bewitching eyes. This was the charm of words. Earlier when he was obviously the same meaning, but when different people said it, she recognized him as the blue dragon and even guided him in his advancement. Those students who were originally ridiculing Shangguan Luli for bullying the weak and fearing the strong, representing the intermediate almost thought that Yi-Ching Luo had really come to his secret place. All nodded their heads, but when he opened his eyes, the wooden house was obviously empty, and these words also blocked Yi-Ching Luo's path of retreat. This was his secret place, and he had never brought Yi-Ching Luo here before, so how could he gain a good reputation appear here? Even if they defeated another devil class badly, this wasn't his first time dreaming of Yi-Ching Luo. If she didn't agree, there might be people who had dreamt of Yi-Ching Luo for not knowing what's good for her. However, in the dream, she looked even more heroic. She held a long sword in her hand and wore a red battle robe. In the crowd, after his voice rang out, he was covered in sweat. That voice was very familiar. He took off his shirt and prepared to wash it in the pool. And saw Qiao, but he had not expected Yi-Ching Luo to be acting as one of the spectators. With a pa sound, his appearance was unremarkable, and he deliberately restrained his Zhan's head. He did not stand out in imagination run wild. The minute Xiao Jin opened his mouth, the surrounding students all started to cheer. Long Yunjian was in pain as he regained his senses and shot his gaze back onto Yi-Ching Luo's face. Recalling Yi-Ching Luo's earlier sentence of the students of the devil class had already disappeared for a few years. Downcast. The only two known students were Yi-Ching Luo and Mo Yue. Could it be that he was too hasty? Everyone was also very curious, and it affected his body. After so many years, why do I keep feeling my heart had been stored in that place that housed all the trash in the academy? You're a dragon? Since Qiao Jin had spoken up at this moment, he must have never heard the dragon that could transform into a human in the Nirvana realm. Immediately, Yi-Ching Luo had no more worries. Dragons were the leaders of the beasts and represented an incomparably noble status. Dragons were extremely rare in the Nirvana realm. Just like what class there were only 3 known dragons. This is an opportunity for the devil class. Even if it was waste a year's time, he might not be able to subdue a dragon as his own warpath. Furthermore, I have a request. Dragons were extremely difficult to reproduce and grow. Glint in her eyes. It would take at least 10,000 years to become an adult dragon. If class monitor not to mention cultivating into a human elder's quarters, then I will represent devil class to not try to hide anything. What his eyelashes fluttered. Xie Yan's brows rose. I didn't know I was a dragon before I met quarters. You don't know I'm a dragon? No wonder his expression was so strange when he was talking to Chi-Chi. Perhaps Chi-Chi had sensed the dragon as though class monitor Xie Yan told him begging devil class to join in. I don't know. I don't know anything about my past. What rights does devil class have to talk about bewilderment? If you want to join, then join. Forget it if you don't. Lingering on water. On what basis are you talking about conditions? I've been in this heavenly academy, the surrounding students and the director sent me to the devil class with righteous indignation. Yi-Ching Luo was shocked. A waste class really treated themselves as treasure? Did you lose your memory after coming to the academy? Wishful thinking. Or was it the director who sent Long Yunjian to the devil class? If Long Yunjian was a dragon in human form, then his own ability was absolutely not bad. Freedom? Otherwise, Long Yunjian would not have come to the devil class, as though he didn't understand what trash into geniuses. I want devil class's students to have the freedom to leave or stay. He wasn't a waste, other than the academy's restricted areas. Especially devil class's was the director. Have the right to go anywhere in the heavenly academy. But suspect that Long Yunjian's amnesia might have something to do with the director. During the interclass competition, other than my name, even if devil class's students, I don't remember anyone or anything. The academy had no right to transfer them to other classes. His face revealed a painful expression. In the future, a person without any memories of the past, they would be able to move everything in the past to announce devil class's students to the public. How fearful and helpless must one naturally had to think of a way out for them. Luo's brows softened a little as she sighed softly. Do you remember why you came to devil class? Wasn't too difficult because of my pair of eyes. He could roughly guess the reason why Yi-Ching Luo suddenly raised his eyes. Those people in devil class were like a ravaged gem. Their innate talents were extremely bad, and they had no actual combat experience at all. Was just about to touch. They had been hiding in the academy like a mouse hiding for several years, just because they were the first person to praise my beautiful eyes. If they were to take part in the interclass competition, as his lips curled into a bitter smile in front of everyone's eyes of mine. If they didn't have this freedom, say that I'm a monster. These students would definitely be isolated and bullied by the other class's students. So the director sent me to devil class. New students' thoughts were so meticulous. He chuckled again. Xie Yan recalled his brother instructing him revealed that he must definitely let devil classes students will not despise my eyes, nor will they treat me as a different species. He restrained the radiance in his eyes as he smiled strongly so that they don't need to look at other people's strange gazes. Yes or no? Were in an uproar. Long Yunjian nodded his head but immediately shook his head. As for the other classes' the original intention of helping them, maybe it's because these people's goodwill towards spread out his hands with a helpless look. Training them, waiting for your answer. Because I want to find back my own memories. Couldn't care less if he had any ideas or strength. In this unfamiliar place where he had no memories, there was no way he could towards the direction of the canteen. Not to mention searching for his own memories. Her as he squinted his eyes, he could only make himself stronger to make his own team stronger. Only then would they be able to survive in this world where the strong preyed on the weak looked around and have the chance to find his own memories. Carefully grabbing Xie Yan's arm. These few years I've been enduring silently. Thank you for helping me. Your arrival. At this point, Long Yunjian's blue eyes became misty. The moment I saw you, I had a strong premonition. Perhaps it's the sixth sense of a dragon, or perhaps its brother and sister were truly blood-related. I know that perhaps I can get the answer from you if I want to find out the truth. What does it have to do with you? You have a holy beast, the white tiger cold eyes as her lips curled disapprovingly. The smile on Long Devil Class's face became a little gentler. But if the brothers in Devil Class are willing to take part, and aloofness, I will follow along. Looking at that smile again, before the Devil Class can participate, was in a class monitor. Xie must be able to fulfill the requirements that I have raised. It smelled the scent of the dragon clan on me. As you look down on the Devil Class, don't show up in front of me. His voice gradually became excited. I'm also a student of the Devil Class. said that I'm a beast just like him. He kept saying that he didn't want Yiqing Luo to get hurt and so on. It is one of the high and mighty ancient sacred beasts. But these words, and I am a human dragon on the upper class from the bottom of his heart. Since he looked down on them, what was the point of putting on airs in front of her? She had never heard this pronoun before. Originally didn't want to waste her saliva on Shangguan. What is the upper realm? But upon thinking that she would be harassed by others because of this matter, mother had mentioned about the upper realm. Everything out at once. That was the 3 realms above Nirvana realm. It was rumored that only those who became the strongest in Nirvana realm would be sent to the upper realm, in order to maintain the peace of Nirvana realm. If you insist on seeking death, it was to become the strongest in Nirvana realm. Shangguan had always thought of himself as a romantic and elegant man, which was the legendary level. Wherever he went, he would receive the shy glances of women. Then they would be led into the upper realm by the envoys from the upper realm. But he was humiliated like this. He flew into a rage out of humiliation. So when she mentioned the upper realm, he flicked his sleeves and mouth turned into an O shape. Luo picked up the tray and after washing the dragon's position in the dragon clan is second only to one of the 4 ancient sacred beasts. He had wasted quite a lot of time on this pair of siblings. Saw that she understood remembering that the ghost doctor had told him to return to the medicine refining room earlier. It's already difficult for other high-level mirage beasts to cultivate into a human. From the cafeteria to the library was between the male and female dormitories. Our human dragon clan, because the dormitory management was very strict. No male students were allowed to climb over the walls of the female dormitory. Dragons in the human dragon clan. This path was also blocked because many male students wanted to go to the female dormitories, and gradually there were only 100 dragons left, causing this path to be blocked. In a great battle in the upper realm, the human dragon clan was exterminated. Even if she was blocked, maybe the human dragon too strenuous from the upper realm during the battle. She crossed the small path and was about to take the main road to the library when a strong arm suddenly wrapped around her slender waist from behind. I still can't believe it. The elegant scent of sandalwood instantly filled her nostrils. Ever since he could remember, the man's broad wish was to find out his origins, to regain his memories. That scorching temperature, but now, knowing his own origins, seemed as though it was going to burn any joy at all. He wasn't human, so he had a pair of different little hand held onto the large palm on her waist. Moreover, the identity of a human dragon was too heartless. In the great battle in the upper realm, the human dragon clan was exterminated. The man's voice resounded in her ears, which meant that he was shouldering the blood displeasure of the human dragon clan. Everything that he knew was pressing on him one by one. A sense of knowing all these, Long Yunjian wanted to tell Yiqing Luo. Ever since she was sent to the library pavilion as a punishment and met the ghost doctor, she would definitely be able to give him an answer. She indeed did not have the time to care about DMO. But every time he saw Yiqing Luo, he didn't know where to start. Energy treasure land for an entire dragon. DMO Shen couldn't come to her dormitory every night and hug her to sleep together. Knew all these, but yesterday she was assassinated and her dormitory was destroyed. Or was he afraid that Yiqing Luo would also use that strange gaze to look at him? How anxious would DMO Shen be when he knew that she had suffered clearly what kind of feeling this was? Yiqing Luo resisting her identity as a human dragon, and she could empathize with that kind of anxiety. Human dragon clan. It was no wonder that the lady's clear voice could not keep his composure and spitting out every word in broad daylight. I'm sorry, a soft little hand rested on his shoulder. Luo turned around Long DMO Shen's arms and faced him. The little hand on his shoulder was very warm, around DMO Shen's waist. It seemed to seep through his clothes and heat up his skin. Long Yunjian's heart uncontrollably. The moment she raised her eyes, she met this kind of inexplicable feeling made Long Yunjian feel vexed as he wanted to push Yiqing Luo's hand away, but he couldn't blossoms glisten like when he heard Yiqing Luo revealing his thoughts in flowing lights. He
his
instantly had a
obsidian black
flustered
eyes
feeling as though his inner thoughts had been seen through. His hair was slightly messy. Panic came out of nowhere. It was obvious that he had not taken care of it for a long time. What did he have that he was afraid of Yiqing Luo? His brows were slightly furrowed. If you reject the identity of a human dragon, this one look made Yiqing Luo's heart thumped hard as it trembled. If you don't say anything, who will know? Her fair little hands trembled as she voice was indifferent with a calming effect. His smooth chin already had some stubble, which was slightly prickly to the touch. This blood feud has nothing to do with you, his peerless face still had his usual devilish charm, very serious, but it was hard to hide his haggardness. If others knew about Renlong's identity, it would definitely cause a huge shadow at the corner of his eyes. Heaven chose to make you lose your memory, to let you stay in the devil class, so it might be heaven's will to let you start your life anew as a human. Held Yiqing Luo's hand. Yiqing Luo's lips curled like a child's grumbling, but his eyes were filled with joy was bound to be a huge war. Safe and sound. Yiqing Luo shook her head as she rubbed her face against his chest. The path of revenge is too arduous and too dangerous. Her ears were filled with an extremely rhythmic heartbeat, the only human dragon indescribably at ease. Perhaps, one day in the future we will be able to head to the upper realm. When we have that kind of strength, if you wish, you can investigate everything about the human dragon clan and investigate your own companions. Worry about him like this. Yiqing Luo's words were very light, she also contained a lot of power. Last night, before we have enough strength, what we need to do is to live well, and revealing a tinge of heartache. This was also lowered his head slightly as he placed his chin on her neck. Losing her profound heart the lady's fragrance, she almost lost her life. That restless heart, if it wasn't for the fact that Demo Xian gave her a profound heart the killers yesterday, she would have been killed in that critical moment. He could only stand at the top of the tall building and watch. The person who dug away her profound heart. He wanted to show himself to save Yiqing Luo. What belonged to her, she would always get support when she was in danger. But before her strength reached the level where she could get her profound heart, but at the same time, she would not act rashly. Having lived 2 lives, shouldering the Imperial Palace's mission. If he were to show himself more possibilities, it would definitely attract the Academy's attention. How could she talk about revenge? All of his plans would fail. About getting back what belonged to her. Long Yunjian. The world was big, but he had nothing was bigger than living well. Chi exhausted Long Yunjian's pair of energy to allow Long Yunjian to transform into a dragon. The azure blue waves in order to charge into the array barrier. Thank you. Forced out the dragon's energy. Long Yunjian's eyes were filled with excitement. In Long Yunjian's the thing that had been bothering him finally got the best answer. A very important There's no need for thanks, but it was because of yesterday's killer incident which made he could understand even her eyes were filled with a warm smile grow up on her own. He finally understood why Yiqing Luo wanted to walk side by side with him and not let him protect her under her each other and smile. Because Yiqing Luo wasn't willing to be just advanced to the profound. She wanted to be his assistant, an assistant who really didn't look like an ordinary. His identity meant that he had too much helplessness. What stage did you advance to? He had no way to stay by Yiqing Luo's side all the time. The four words identity were like also meant that the people around him would meet with many unknown dangers because of Luo's pupils. He was actually very clear that if Long Yunjian wasn't able to transform into a dragon and kill the entire Heavenly Academy, he would even including the masters and elders discovered to how many people were above the earth. The degree of care he had for Yiqing Luo dragon exceeded his imagination. The only human dragon comparable to an ancient sacred in his eyes as his arms tightened. Transforming into a human, be in a dangerous situation unbelievably strong. Yiqing Luo smiled as the smile on her lips. I was previously stuck at the 7th grade of the Earth Profound Realm. She told Demo Xian about how she met the Ghost Doctor. If it wasn't for you guiding the dragon's power to fuse with my profound jade heart, the blue dragon, I wouldn't have advanced. The Academy has arranged a new dormitory just as Yiqing Luo was filled with grief and only be able to move in after we return to the Academy during the holidays. Tonight, I'll stay in the spiritual Chi treasure land to cultivate. I reckon that when I wake up tomorrow, my internal injuries should be completely healed. Yiqing Luo explained where she went last night. Find a place and have a good rest for 2 days. We'll meet again when we return to Three Springs Sect. Chasing me away just like that? Demo Xian rubbed his head against her neck. That scorching breath blew on her earlobe from time to time. Yiqing Luo endured the numbing feeling as her little hand clutched the robes around his waist tightly. Ah Xian, I can't bear to part with you, but what I should do now is to work hard to raise my own strength. I don't want you to worry about me. Silly girl. Demo Xian sighed softly as his palm covered Yiqing Luo's head, pulling the both of them apart. He lowered his eyes and stared into the woman's enchanting eyes as he gently kissed her on the lips. No matter how powerful you become, I will always worry about you. How could he not be worried? But no matter how worried he was, Demo Xian couldn't do something like intentionally distancing himself from her just to prevent her from getting hurt. He couldn't bear to and he couldn't do it. This sweet kiss was gentle and lingering, deeply hooking Yiqing Luo. Chapter 405. By the time Yiqing Luo returned to the pill refining room, it was already 2 hours later. The ghost doctor's originally dark and gloomy face was now even darker. A pair of cold eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo, You took so long just to have a meal? Something happened and delayed me. Yi Qing Luo lowered her head as she gave a low laugh. Ghost Doctor gave a cold harumph as his face turned gloomy, troublesome. Yi Qing Luo gave a few dry laughs. Ghost Doctor saw her look and couldn't be bothered to scold her as he flicked his sleeves and entered the pill-refining secret room again. Following that, Yi Qing Luo automatically started to tidy up the other medicine cabinet. With the experience of tidying up in the morning, the second medicine cabinet was much easier to tidy up. After she had tidied up the medicinal herbs and names in the two medicine cabinets, these medicinal herbs' shapes and effects were all recorded in Yi Qing Luo's mind. Yi Qing Luo dusted her hands as she scanned the medicine cabinet from top to bottom to ensure that she didn't miss out on any drawer. She turned back and tidied up the two messy wooden tables. Ghost Doctor didn't return. Yi Qing Luo surveyed the surroundings and on seeing the messy bookshelves, she automatically tidied up the bookshelves. She remembered that the last time she bumped into this place she accidentally opened the pill-refining secret room. This time she paid attention and carefully avoided the mechanism. These books which Ghost Doctor had stored were all related to pill refining. There were records of various medicinal herbs' geographical locations, and there were records and legends regarding the origins of the medicinal herbs. As she continued to tidy up, there were quite a number of rare medicinal pill formulas. Yi Qing Luo flipped through it and even saw a few familiar formulas. These were the formulas which she had seen from the 100 Pill Refining book. The 100 Pill Refining book was something which Old Man Song had hidden for a very, very long time. Even if it wasn't a few thousand years old, it would at least be a few hundred years old. If this were to be leaked out, it would definitely cause a bloodbath. There were quite a number of formulas in these books which belonged to Ghost Doctor. It showed how rare and precious these books were. Yi Qing Luo tidied up as she flipped through these books. If there was something which she was interested in, she would spend more time and effort to memorize it all. Time passed slowly, one breath at a time. Yi Qing Luo had already tidied up to the last shelf. Just as he was about to move a stool to step on it, he heard a few ladies' ridiculing laughter coming from outside the pill refining room. Didn't they say that Yi Qing Luo had been punished to the second story to clean up? Why don't I see him? Could it be that he secretly ran away? If you run, you'll be going against the instructor's orders. Let's split up and look for him. If we can't find him, we'll inform Instructor He and Instructor Chu. Soon after, the sound of several footsteps could be heard walking back and forth. The soundproofing of the medicine refining room had been designed to allow the Ghost Doctor to refine medicine in peace. Moreover, the Ghost Doctor had been afraid of trouble, and because of that, it had been designed very well. By right, under the circumstances of the pill refining room being sealed, Yi Qing Luo shouldn't be able to hear the discussions outside. It was just that. Yi Qing Luo didn't know what was going on. Ever since she came out from the profound Qi treasure land this morning, her perception and acuity seemed to have increased by quite a bit. Separated by the thick walls, the footsteps and discussions of the students outside could be heard clearly in his ears. Obviously, these people were here to see her make a fool of herself. Yi Qing Luo was a little speechless. Was she really so hated? It was just a punishment of cleaning the library pavilion. In the afternoon, Shengguan Lioli had chided her, and now she had to be chided by others. Chapter 406. Yi Qing Luo put down the book in her hands and silently walked to the side of the door as she opened a small gap. She saw a few female students walking around outside the library pavilion, pushing open one reading room after another as they searched for Yi Qing Luo. They didn't dare to call out loudly, afraid that the administrator would be called over. All of them called out Yi Qing Luo's name softly. Yi Qing Luo's brows twitched. Why did she have a feeling of soul calling? It looked like if these people didn't find her, they probably wouldn't let this matter rest. Damn it. They were all people who had too much time on their hands. They didn't want to improve themselves, but her time was very precious. Suppressing the raging primitive energy in her heart, Yi Qing Luo shut her eyes as she silently recited the incantation and her figure suddenly swayed. In a blink of an eye, she disappeared from the pill refining room. The entrance of the pill refining secret passage split open and Ghost Doctor walked out with a gloomy face. Before he could open his mouth to berate Yi Qing Luo for creating trouble again, he saw Yi Qing Luo's figure, as though it had blended into the air, disappearing without a trace. Little by little, a trace of astonishment appeared on his wrinkled face. He immediately congealed his senses, sensing Yi Qing Luo's position. In the reading room not too far away, he sensed Yi Qing Luo's weak presence and the astonishment in his eyes grew by several degrees. In an instant, she silently shifted her position. Wasn't this the legendary secret method? This freshman, how was she able to display such a secret method? In the reading room, Yiqing Luo pretended to clean up as she patted the books on the bookshelf, arranging them properly one by one. Suddenly, the reading room's door was opened by someone. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes, recognizing her at one glance. High profound classes student, Yan Xiaoyi's half-sister with extremely high innate talent, Yan Zhenfei. She's here. Yiqing Luo is here. The minute Yan Zhenfei saw Yiqing Luo, she immediately stuck her head out and shouted. A few hurried footsteps were heard. 3 female students blocked the reading room's door. This lineup. Yiqing Luo put down the book in her hands, turned around and smiled. I know you all worship me and are so agitated to see me. Are you all here to ask for my autograph? Bah. Yan Zhenfei spat and turned to hug the arm of the female student behind her. Sister Xuelan, look at her. She's been punished for 2 days in a row. Her reputation is ruined, but she still doesn't know it. Lu Xuelan's beautiful eyes squinted slightly, her expression was filled with pride as she examined Yiqing Luo. It was undeniable that Yiqing Luo's looks were too stunning. Coupled with her extremely lazy attitude as if she didn't care about anything, it added a bit of charm to her. Moreover, the temperament that she exuded was so unruly and unrestrained, yet at ease and at ease. Indeed, she had the capital to make people unable to shift their gazes away from her. Lu Xuelan hated Yiqing Luo's beauty, but at the same time, Yiqing Luo's existence was beneficial to her. No one was willing to be born under someone else. It was the same for her. In terms of appearance, talent, and profound rank, she was no worse than Lu Xueyu. Just because Lu Xueyu was born a year earlier than her, she had to become Lu Xueyu's foil. What? Usually, she and Lu Xueyu had a deep sisterly relationship, running errands for Lu Xueyu everywhere. Lu Xuelan had enough of these things. Hoping and waiting, finally Yiqing Luo's appearance. She didn't like Yiqing Luo, but as the saying goes, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If she was able to rope in Yiqing Luo and completely make Lu Xueyu step down, then the position of vice president would be hers. Chapter 407. Yan Zhenfei's and the other female students' expressions changed instantly. What happened to finding trouble? How did it become helping Yiqing Luo? Due to Lu Xuelan's status, the both of them had their doubts, but they didn't dare to say a single word. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed as she laughed lightly. Help me? Acting vice president is so kind. That's natural. As the faculty council's vice president, I naturally have to be considerate of students. This is the faculty council's aim. Lu Xuelan apparently didn't hear the ridicule in Yiqing Luo's words and thought that she was praising herself as a smile appeared on her face. Yiqing Luo laughed silently in her heart. This Lu Xuelan was really not suitable to stand on such a high ground. Not even a third of her sisters. At least Lu Xueyu knew how to conceal her own thoughts, and other than Si Yenmu's matters, her brain spun extremely quickly. If this Lu Xuelan really became the vice president of the faculty council, she would probably be scolded by Si Yenmu to the point of being drenched with dog's blood. Just one look at Lu Xuelan and Yiqing Luo knew what she was planning. Acting vice president. Yan Zhenfei's brows creased slightly as she gently tugged Lu Xuelan's sleeve. She's not praising. Shut up. Lu Xuelan berated coldly as her expression sunk. Aren't you going to help student Yi clean the library pavilion? Yan Zhenfei lowered her eyelids as she didn't dare to say another word. She pulled the female student next to her into the reading room to help Yiqing Luo tidy up. Everything in the reading room had been tidied up by Qiao Jin and the rest yesterday, so they didn't need their help at all. Moreover, Lu Xuelan didn't have any good intentions. No need. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and stopped the both of them. I don't need any help. If there's nothing, please leave and don't disturb me. She had tried her best to make her tone gentle and polite. But the three of them apparently didn't think so. Yan Zhenfei was originally suppressing a ball of fire in her heart because of Lu Xuelan's command, and without thinking, she pointed at Yiqing Luo and rebuked. Don't be unappreciative. Acting vice president asked us to help you because he thinks highly of you. What right do you have to reject him? That's right, a student from the devil class with such a notorious reputation. How dare he act so arrogantly? Another female student was also displeased. They were all high profound class students and had always been used to being high and mighty. Since when was it the turn of a devil class student to point fingers? Bah! A bright red handprint appeared on Yan Zhenfei's face. She screamed in pain and covered her face. Her cheeks were swollen. She stared at Yiqing Luo but realized that Yiqing Luo was standing at the same spot, as though she had not moved at all. But Yi-Ching Luo raised her fair little hand and gently stroked it, totally indicating that this slap was from her. "You're really thick-skinned, it hurts my hand." Yi-Ching Luo looked like she was hit and sighed, "My poor little hand, sigh." Yan Zhenfei's eyes were red. This slap had almost caused her teeth to fall out. It was so painful that when she moved her facial muscles slightly, she felt a tearing pain. Yi-Ching Luo totally didn't bother about Yan Zhenfei's anger as she slowly turned her head and looked at the female student on the side. The female student subconsciously covered her face filled with horror. How on earth did Yi-Ching Luo's slap land on her? They totally didn't see Yi-Ching Luo moving at all. Yi-Ching Luo. Lu Shuelan's expression wasn't too good as her forced smile froze on her face. Although Yi-Ching Luo's slap landed on Yan Zhenfei's face. Chapter 408. Yi-Ching Luo sneered, "I don't have a good temper, don't come and provoke me if you don't have the ability, otherwise I'll beat up whoever comes." Lu Shuelan narrowed her eyes as her eerie gaze sized up Yi-Ching Luo's hand. 2 days ago, she had heard Yi-Ching Jian mention that Yi-Ching Luo was the one who trained the intruders in the forest. She had just become the acting vice president, and such a huge incident had already happened. If the news spread to the elder quarters, Elder Yunxiang would not be the only one to suffer, she would as well. Yesterday there was the matter of an outside assassin trying to assassinate Yi-Ching Luo, causing the academy's students to be on tenterhooks as they started to question the academy's safety. There were even some students from the high profound class who didn't keep their mouths shut and revealed the trespassers. They were all guessing if the intruders that day were these assassins. In this time of panic, the students placed their hopes on the faculty council. Lu Shuelan was also very anxious. If the intruders were killers, then those intruders absolutely had nothing to do with Yi-Ching Luo. Especially when they heard Shengguan Fangyi mention that when they tested Yi-Ching Luo obviously didn't seem to have suffered any internal injury, and even gave Yi-Ching Jian a good thrashing. Today she heard that Yi-Ching Luo had been punished by the instructors, and had agreed with Intermediate Profound Class 2's class monitor, Xie Yin, that Devil class would join in the interclass competition 8 months later. He became even more suspicious. Under Yan Zhenfei's invitation, Lu Shuelan decided to come to the library to take a look. To test if Yi-Ching Luo was injured and at the same time, to rope Yi-Ching Luo in to get rid of Lu Shueyu completely. What Lu Shuelan had not expected was that Yi-Ching Luo totally didn't fall for her tricks. "Yi-Ching Luo, you've offended so many people, I'd like to see what other backing you have and how long you can stay in the Heavenly Academy." Lu Shuelan's beautiful eyes were gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yi-Ching Luo. Since they couldn't be allies, they were enemies. Anyway, Yi-Ching Luo and Lu Shueyu's relationship was like fire and water, so she wasn't worried that Yi-Ching Luo would join hands with Lu Shueyu. Lu Shuelan snorted coldly. Just when she was about to leave, she heard the administrator's loud voice coming from the second floor. "Students of the high profound class, just read your books, don't keep yelling. If you don't want to read, then scram." As he spoke, the administrator walked over. On seeing Yi-Ching Luo, that incomparably fierce face revealed anger. "It's you again. What are you doing in the library all day long?" Seeing the administrator appear, a cunning look flashed across Yan Zhenfei's eyes. The hostility between her brows immediately disappeared, and she put on a pitiful look. She covered her face and sobbed softly, "Administrator, we just came here to look for some cultivation books to read. Classmate Yi beat me up without any explanation. Vice President Dai and classmate Fong were just standing up for me, so their voices were a little louder." Hearing Yan Zhenfei's words and seeing the handprint on her face, the administrator's face darkened. He directly stretched out his hand towards Yi-Ching Luo as he tugged her collar. "A student like you, my library pavilion doesn't welcome you. Making trouble all day long, get out of here. I'll talk to your instructor later and ask him not to throw people into the library when he punishes you." But just as his hand was about to grab Yi-Ching Luo's collar, a white shadow flashed past. The administrator hadn't managed to react in time when his wrist instantly turned numb. He clutched his arm and didn't make any sound, but his face was filled with agony. It was so painful that his face turned pale as he broke out in cold sweat. He clenched his teeth, enduring the pain as he looked at the thing which had struck his wrist. A white porcelain bottle fell onto the floor as it shook slightly. That was a porcelain bottle which stored pills. This porcelain bottle. Why did it look a little like... Chapter 409. The door of the alchemy room, which had always been tightly shut, was now half open. The dazzling luminous pearl cast a long shadow. Ghost Doctor was filled with a vicious aura as he stood at the entrance with a gloomy expression, his gaze staring eerily in the direction of Yiqing Luo and the others. The administrator lowered his head in fear. Lord Ghost Doctor. The 3 female students beside him had been in the academy for many years, so they had naturally heard of the rumors about the Ghost Doctor. They also knew that the medicine refining room was a forbidden area on the 2nd floor of the library. Whether it was the high profound class or the class of gods, no one was allowed to step into the forbidden area. Because of this, no one had ever seen the Ghost Doctor herself. When he heard the administrator's shout, his eyes immediately widened. How lucky were they today to actually meet the elusive Ghost Doctor? Lu Shuilan was the first to react. She hurriedly dragged the 2 female students behind her and lowered her head towards the Ghost Doctor. Lord Ghost Doctor. The Ghost Doctor's face was dark and cold, her gaze was like a sharp knife as she stared coldly at the administrator. The administrator felt goosebumps all over his body as he broke out in a cold sweat. Lord Ghost Doctor, I'm really sorry. I've let a few ignorant students disturb your refinement. I'll chase them out right now. The administrator thought that the Ghost Doctor's rage was entirely because these students had interrupted his concoction. Enduring the sharp pain in his wrist, he grabbed another student with each hand and walked out. But when his hand stretched out towards Yiqing Luo once again, Ghost Doctor's porcelain bottle struck his wrist once again. It was precisely in the same position. This time it was so painful that the manager cried out on the spot. He clutched his wrist and looked at the Ghost Doctor with a face full of fear and confusion. When Lu Shuilan and the others saw this, they did not dare to make a sound. They lowered their heads, hoping that their presence would be reduced to the minimum. Come here. The Ghost Doctor's voice was ice cold, his gaze cold. The administrator's sturdy body suddenly trembled. The sharp pain in his arm caused his face to contort in pain. Hearing the Ghost Doctor's words, no matter how scared he was, he didn't dare to retort. Lifting his feet, he walked towards the Ghost Doctor. But a slender figure was even faster than him and walked in front of him. Yiqing Luo's footsteps were light and graceful, as though there wasn't a single bit of fear or terror, nor did she tremble from the powerful pressure that Ghost Doctor had unleashed. She walked straight towards the Ghost Doctor, openly. Hey, get back here. That was the Ghost Doctor. If you offend the Ghost Doctor, even if you die 10 times, it won't be enough to compensate. The manager's face instantly turned pale. He had been a librarian in the academy for decades and had always been in charge of the library. Naturally, he knew the Ghost Doctor's temper and personality. He hated trouble and didn't think about the academy at all. There was once a student who kept pestering him to learn the skills of refining medicine, but was beaten out by the Ghost Doctor with a single palm strike. That student was seriously injured and had to leave the academy. Later on, it was said that he had completely become a cripple. However, the one who made the move was the Ghost Doctor. That student's family did not dare to cause trouble for the academy. Student Yi. The administrator saw Yiqing Luo walking towards Ghost Doctor's direction in a daze. He endured the pain in his wrist as he dashed forward, trying to pull Yiqing Luo back. Although he didn't have any good impression of Yiqing Luo, but she was after all a student of the academy, and as a senior figure in the academy, he wasn't willing to see any student getting hurt. But the scene in front of him caused the administrator to suddenly stop in his tracks. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. He saw Yiqing Luo walking in front of Ghost Doctor and nodding her head slightly at him. Senior Ghost Doctor. Chapter 410. The administrator and the 3 female students behind him were all stunned. Especially the administrator. His mouth was agape as his face was filled with disbelief. Had he developed an auditory hallucination, developing hallucinations? Sir Ghost Doctor actually didn't slap that student out? He actually used such an amiable tone to speak to that student? If Yiqing Luo knew the administrator's inner thoughts, she would probably ridicule endlessly. Damn it. This is called amiable? This fiendish look as though I owe him 1,800,000 coins, this is also called amiable? However, in the administrator's eyes, he was used to seeing how Ghost Doctor ruthlessly slapped one after another. Ghost Doctor didn't take any action and only said a few words, which was already considered as the most amiable. Who asked my disciple to scram out? Ghost Doctor's vision shifted away from Yiqing Luo, locking onto the administrator. When the administrator heard the 2 words disciple, he was instantly struck by lightning from a clear sky. His ears were filled with the sound of thunder exploding. Not only him, Lu Shuilan, Yan Zhenfei and the others also had a look as though they had seen a ghost. Yiqing Luo was Ghost Doctor's disciple? How could that be possible? Lu Shuilan was just hooting, saying that Yiqing Luo no longer had any backing and now a Ghost Doctor appeared. She felt as though her face was being slapped. Her hands, which were hanging by the side of her body, clenched tightly into fists. Why was Yiqing Luo so lucky? What mysterious and noble people, all became her backing. First it was the Overlord, then it was Guiyu and now a Ghost Doctor. Lu Shuilan was so hateful that her lungs were about to explode. But on her face she didn't dare to reveal any of it. The administrator's well-built body kept trembling as his voice trembled. Ghost, Sir Ghost Doctor, I didn't know that student Yi is your disciple. How would I dare to ask her to scram? Ghost Doctor gave a cold laugh. The administrator trembled even more violently. He suddenly slapped his own face. Left and right slaps, the strength was huge. 2 slaps and his entire face swelled up. Sir Ghost Doctor, the one who spoke rudely was me, the one who had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai is also me, it has nothing to do with these students. The administrator raised his head and after meeting the Ghost Doctor's eyes, he immediately lowered his head again. I beg Lord Ghost Doctor, please release this group of students. When Lu Shuilan heard this, her face immediately turned pale. She dragged the 2 female students and knelt on the ground. Yes. This matter has nothing to do with us. It was the administrator who told student Yi to get out. We don't know anything. These words really made one's heart turn cold. The administrator only glanced at them and also knelt down. It's my fault, I beg Lord Ghost Doctor to let these students go. Yiqing Luo slowly narrowed her eyes as she swept past Lu Shuilan and the others who were kneeling on the ground as she sneered. This smile seemed exceptionally clear and ethereal in the empty library, adding some mysteriousness to it. The Ghost Doctor turned her head and glanced at her, her expression cold. Then she said lightly, since you spoke rudely, you have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Why do you still need this mouth and this pair of eyes? Hearing these words, the manager's face instantly turned pale. Lu Shuilan, who was kneeling on the ground, turned soft, as she was so frightened that she directly knelt down on the ground. The administrator glanced sideways at the 3 frightened students behind him as he clenched his teeth. Yes, spoke rudely, you have eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. This mouth, this pair of eyes indeed cannot be kept. Saying that, he raised his hand and congealed a burst of profound qi as he stabbed towards his own eyes. Chapter 411. Dong. A soft sound was heard and the administrator gave a muffled groan. Lu Shuilan and the others slowly opened their eyes and saw a bewitching red glow flashing past. That was Yiqing Luo's feather fan, like a ball of blazing fire, forming an arc in midair as it returned to Yiqing Luo's hand. Whereas the administrator who was struck by that feather fan earlier, his sturdy body was on the verge of collapsing onto the ground. Disciple is not satisfied with the way you handled this? Ghost Doctor squinted his eyes as he stared coldly at Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo waved her feather fan and pressed against her lower lip as she casually brushed past the administrator and gave a faint laugh. Since administrator has already admitted his mistake, then let's just forget about this matter. Ghost Doctor gave a cold laugh. The administrator laid on the ground as his clothes were soaked in sweat. He trembled as he climbed up and was just about to continue kneeling when he heard Ghost Doctor's cold voice, still not going to scram. The administrator was stunned as his eyes revealed a look of ecstasy. In other words, Ghost Doctor had let him off. He immediately kowtowed on the ground. Thank you, Sir Ghost Doctor, thank you, Student Yi. Saying that, he got up and dragged the 3 female students as he speedily left the 2nd story of the library pavilion, not daring to stay any longer. Yiqing Luo saw the administrator leaving and cupped her fists towards Ghost Doctor. Thank you, Senior Ghost Doctor, for stepping forward. Ghost Doctor flicked his sleeves as he turned around and walked into the pill refining room. Yiqing Luo rubbed her nose as she followed him in. She was very curious. Why would the Ghost Doctor, who had always hated trouble, get involved in such a dispute? Just a single disagreement and he would lose his mouth and eyes, so brutal and bloody. Stand up for her? It seemed like in Ghost Doctor's heart, she hadn't reached the level where he would stand up for her. After Ghost Doctor entered the pill refining room, he stared eerily at Yiqing Luo as his half-squinted eyes revealed a sense of scrutiny. Yiqing Luo's hair stood on end from his stare as she had a taste of the administrator's feeling earlier and it wasn't a good feeling. Why did you help him? After a while, Ghost Doctor asked coldly. Help him? Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes in puzzlement as she realized that he was referring to the administrator. No reason, I just feel that the Academy's elders who are thinking for the students are worthy of respect. Yiqing Luo replied calmly. Seeing that the administrator was even willing to destroy his own eyes so that Lu Xuelan and the others could leave unscathed, this action made Yiqing Luo recall that when she walked towards Ghost Doctor, he had also disregarded Ghost Doctor's prestige and wanted to go up to stop her. This action aroused her compassion. Although the administrator was a little fierce and his words were a little harsh, his heart for the sake of the students was sincere. In this dirty academy, there was still someone with such a pure heart. Yiqing Luo respected him. Hearing Yiqing Luo's reply, Ghost Doctor gave a cold harumph. You're rather kind. God. Yiqing Luo smiled in disbelief. Perhaps the current her was indeed much more soft-hearted than before. This word had nothing to do with her in the past. But ever since she came to this strange world and met people who melted the ice in her heart, she was indeed living more and more like a human. However, she liked her current self very much. At least he had flesh and blood and he had his own feelings. Unlike before, he was like a cold killing machine living like that. Her lips curled as she smiled. Isn't Senior Ghost Doctor the same as well? Even if I don't open my mouth to stop him, I'm afraid Senior will stop him. Ghost Doctor's expression was icy cold as he didn't open his mouth to rebuke. Chapter 412. The Ghost Doctor stared at the beautiful young lady in front of him. Her smile was very bright, without any impurities, clean and pure. A pair of curved, enchanting eyes were overflowing with color. Recalling what happened earlier, when Yiqing Luo was facing the administrator and the other 3 female students, she was calm and unperturbed in the face of danger, her brows loosened slightly. This young lady was getting more and more interesting. His eyes flashed and he narrowed his sharp eyes. I thought I had already answered! Exclamation point. Yiqing Luo was shocked, so Ghost Doctor also knew cold humor. She choked on her saliva and coughed violently. She opened her eyes wide and stared fixedly at the Ghost Doctor. The Ghost Doctor's expression hadn't changed from start to finish. Only her eyes had narrowed slightly, revealing a cold glint. Yiqing Luo shuddered. Senior Ghost Doctor's meaning is? You're really prepared to take me in as your disciple? Do I look like someone who jokes? The Ghost Doctor snorted coldly. Yiqing Luo shook her head immediately. It didn't look like it. Absolutely not at all. That meant? The Ghost Doctor really wanted to take her as his disciple? However, after these 2 days of interaction, she felt that the Ghost Doctor's impression of her wasn't that good. She was just a dispensable existence. When she came back from lunch, she also had a fierce look on her face. Why did he suddenly seem like a different person? Strange. It was too strange. There was definitely a trap. Yiqing Luo was vigilant, her eyes were like torches. Senior Gui, just say what you want to say. We're honest people and don't do underhanded things. The Ghost Doctor's eyebrows twitched. As expected, taking in disciples was simply too troublesome. Especially when he was taking in such a weird little girl. He frowned and did not want to get himself into trouble again. He directly asked the question he wanted to ask. Where did you learn the secret technique you used before? Secret technique? Yiqing Luo's expression congealed. Could it be that when he used teleportation just now the Ghost Doctor had seen him? He wanted to learn about this secret technique from her. Was that why he appeared to help her when the administrator chased her away? That secret technique, if I'm not mistaken, should be the King of Thieves' teleportation secret technique. The Ghost Doctor's eyes narrowed, sharp and incisive. Teleportation secret technique. The Ghost Doctor would never make a mistake. Even if tens of thousands of years had passed, he would never forget it. These were their brothers from back then? He stopped his train of thought, his eyes revealing a bit of urgency. If he was able to find out the origin of the secret art from Yiqing Luo, perhaps he might be able to find those few brothers of his. But Ghost Doctor's words had already blocked Yiqing Luo's way out. For the Ghost Doctor to be able to accurately name the secret technique, as well as the creator of this secret technique, she naturally had a deep understanding of secret techniques. Yiqing Luo shouldn't try to use rubbish to bluff him. Yiqing Luo muttered to herself for a moment as she pursed her pink lips slightly, secretly guessing how she should explain the origin of the blink movement secret art. She naturally couldn't tell anyone about the Azure Dew bracelets. After all, this thing did not belong to this world. Moreover, if news of this were to spread, with her current strength, she would have no way of guarding the Azure Dew bracelet. After pondering for some time, Yiqing Luo decisively decided to drag that evildoer of hers out. Soldiers are trained for a day to be used in a moment. If she didn't make use of Dmo Xian's identity now, when would she be able to do so? She nodded her head as she gave a bashful smile. That is indeed the blink movement's secret art. I have some friendship with the Overlord and he felt that my profound grade is too low, making me easily bullied, so he taught me this secret art so that I can use it to escape. The ghost doctor's brows creased. Overlord? Yiqing Luo nodded her head repeatedly. That's right, it's Dmo Xian. Decisively aim her target at Dmo Xian. The ghost doctor remained silent as his eyelids drooped down, muttering softly, Overlord. Overlord. After muttering for some time, he raised his head with an agitated look as his brows creased. You're talking about that Imperial Palace's palace lord who had recently risen. People call him Overlord Dmo Xian? What? There was actually someone in this world who didn't know Dmo Xian. Chapter 413. The so-called legend, wasn't it something which everyone in the world didn't know about and knew about? She thought that ghost doctor was talking about Dmo Xian because he was afraid of Dmo Xian's power. She had not expected. Ghost doctor was thinking, who on earth was Dmo Xian? Alright, ghost doctor's world only consisted of refining pills and no other miscellaneous stuff. The next time you see that fellow from the Imperial Palace, ask him to come and see me. Ghost doctor's next sentence was shocking. Yiqing Luo's mouth turned into an O shape once again. He was indeed ghost doctor. Even when facing Dmo Xian, he totally disregarded him. No, now wasn't the time to be tangled about whether ghost doctor recognized Dmo Xian or not, but ghost doctor wanted to meet Dmo Xian. Then wouldn't the matter of her pushing the blame to Dmo Xian be exposed? But since ghost doctor had already said so, Yiqing Luo could only brace herself as she gave a few dry laughs. No problem, senior ghost doctor's request. Even if I have to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of flames, I will definitely do it for you. The blame which she pushed out, even if she had to kneel down, she had to push it down. Towards Yiqing Luo's talkative words, ghost doctor's expression didn't change at all. His gaze swept across the pill refining room and discovered that not only were the medicinal cabinets pasted neatly with medicinal herbs' names, even the messy bookshelves were stacked neatly. It had only been a few hours. This young lady's actions were rather fast. It seemed like she knew a lot about medicine refinement. Today, because he saw Yiqing Luo displaying her blink movement secret art, he appeared to help her out of her predicament, saying that he would take her in as his disciple. But at this moment he felt that his decision was simply right. Although it was a little troublesome, but if he took in a young lady with an extremely strong innate talent in pill refining, then it would save a lot of time in future. Alright, that's all for today, you can go back now. When ghost doctor turned his head back, he resumed his cold and aloof look. Saying that, he seemed to have thought of something as his brows creased into a bundle. Take your hand out. Yiqing Luo didn't know what was going on, but she still stretched out her hand. Ghost doctor placed his hand on her pulse and helped to take her pulse. Your body's recovery ability isn't bad at all. If there's no accident, take another medicinal pill tonight and you'll be able to recover completely. Ghost doctor took her pulse and casually waved Yiqing Luo's hand away. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up as her face revealed joy. He thought that he would need 3 to 5 days to fully recover, but he didn't expect that he would be completely healed tonight. The ghost doctor's elixirs, as well as the heaven and earth spiritual qi in the spiritual qi treasured land, were of great help to her internal injuries. Tomorrow the academy will be on holiday for 3 days. Memorize all these books. Ghost doctor walked to the front of the bookshelf and his gaze swept across the neatly arranged bookshelf as he casually picked out 3 books and threw them towards Yiqing Luo's direction. Yiqing Luo caught it firmly and lowered her head to take a look. Of these 3 books, one was an introduction to rare medicinal herbs and their locations, another was a recipe for medicinal pills, and the last one was the detailed steps of refining medicinal pills. It was an entry-level book for refining medicine. Although the current Yiqing Luo had already reached the alchemist level of refining pills, but she was after all a half-baked alchemist and her alchemy foundation was still not enough. These books could help her consolidate her foundation. No matter what, no matter how talented one was, one's foundation was the most important. If one's foundation wasn't strong enough, even if one reached the peak, as long as someone pushed slightly from below, it was very likely that they would fall. It was like building a house. If the foundation wasn't strong enough, if there was an earthquake or a strong gale, this house would easily collapse. Yiqing Luo nodded her head as she kept those 3 books. Chapter 4:14. When Yiqing Luo walked down from the first story of the library pavilion, the administrator who had been fidgeting restlessly at the management counter immediately went up to welcome her. That fierce and rough face now carried a cautious expression. "Yi, classmate Yi." When the surrounding students saw this, they all revealed a puzzled expression. Why was the administrator so respectful towards Yiqing Luo? As though he was afraid of Yiqing Luo? This must be a misconception. One must know that the library pavilion administrator was famous for his bad temper. He would shout at the students if there was any disagreement, and almost half of the students in the academy had been ravaged by his rough voice, which was like a bell. But now he was actually being so submissive in front of a new student, and a new student from Devil class? Yiqing Luo noticed the surrounding students' gazes and knew that Lu Shuilan and the others were so frightened that they left directly, so she didn't dare to reveal the fact that she was Ghost Doctor's disciple. After all, Lu Shuilan and the others hated Yiqing Luo to the core. They were very clear that Yiqing Luo had many enemies, so how could they possibly reveal the fact that Ghost Doctor was backing her up? Yiqing Luo retracted her gaze and curled her lips towards the administrator. "Everything will be fine as usual." The administrator responded and stood up to send Yiqing Luo out. This action attracted many students' guesses. After Yiqing Luo walked out of the library pavilion, she headed towards the Devil class's direction. It was nearing the time for Devil class's training. Yiqing Luo was thinking about the matter of accepting the intermediate profound class to participate in the class confrontation. Although Qiao Jin had already agreed to it, but Long Yunzhan was after all Devil class's class monitor, so she still had to talk to him about it. The minute she entered the second door, she heard a lady's crisp voice coming from the training ground. "Your battle power isn't bad at all. Do you want to come again?" This voice sounded unfamiliar. Devil class had new students again? On the training ground, most of the students had already arrived. Everyone didn't warm up like usual, but gathered in a circle, as though their emotions were ignited, as they waved their arms and shouted. Indistinctly, there were some low shouts and collision sounds from a fight. Not long later, 2 figures were seen flying out from the crowd as they rolled onto the ground. The students who had gathered in a circle were shouting excitedly, as they complained to the students who had been sent flying. The 2 students rubbed their waists and waved their hands. "No more, no more. We're convinced." Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes, and coincidentally, because those 2 students were sent flying, the students started to move to the 2 sides, opening up a path. Yiqing Luo saw a petite young lady dressed in the academy uniform being wrapped up by the crowd. With one hand on her waist, her delicate and exquisite face revealed a complacent smile. Her pitch-black watery eyes flashed with the craftiness of a cat. Yiqing Luo frowned. This was not a student from the Devil class. But he looked a little familiar. Just as she was about to step forward to inquire about the situation, Yiqing Luo's chest suddenly surged with a scorching feeling. Her profound heart jade actually started to burn brilliantly in her chest. She stopped in her tracks and covered her chest. Looking at that young lady again, Yiqing Luo was stunned. He was so stunned that he even forgot the burning sensation in his chest. Behind the young girl, a black shadow rose up, like a guardian god, closely following the young girl. What shocked Yiqing Luo the most was that black shadow was a gigantic phantom of a beast, faintly discernible. That was a cat, a pitch-black agile cat. Last Luo, that is the bloodline of the Beastman race. In her mind, Old Man Song's voice was heard. After the Beastman race transform into human form, every time they battle, they will summon their own bloodline, and this is also the bloodline which the contractor will inherit. No one had expected that Kitty Li would actually say out those words about them worshipping Yiqing Luo behind her back, right in front of her face. Looking at those students' distressed looks, Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly softened. A hint of gentleness also appeared on her beautiful face. Her delicate facial features were extremely gentle. It could be said that she was a peerless beauty. The surrounding students were dumbfounded for a moment. "Sister, you're so beautiful." Kitty Li's curved eyebrows revealed envy as she rubbed her head against Yiqing Luo's arm. "Kitty Cat likes beautiful sister. Do you want to contract Kitty Cat?" The soft touch on his arm was like a kitten rubbing against him. Contract her? This was the reason why Yiqing Luo chose to save her right from the start. To be able to contract a beast man and obtain the cat beast's bloodline inheritance. her own strength would also receive a huge upgrade. According to the current situation, Kitty Lee's ability seemed to be not bad. She was actually able to challenge several students alone. Then why was she in the heavenly training forest and met with the evil schemes of the high profound class students? Chapter 416. Contract? The surrounding students looked at each other in dismay. They only knew that the contract was used on magical beasts. Could it be that humans could contract as well? Everyone didn't think too much about it, only thinking that this young lady wanted to follow beside Yiqing Luo, to be her follower. Who on earth are you? Suddenly, a cold voice was heard from the other end of the training ground. Tong Ziqing's expression was icy cold, her brows knitted into a bundle as she stared at Kitty Lee with vigilance. From the skills you displayed today, your profound grade must be above Mystic Profound 6th grade. And you don't panic in the face of danger, so you should be someone who is used to fighting. Most importantly, your speed is not wrong, and your reaction is extremely strong. Why would you be caught by the high profound class students in the heavenly training forest, and look so weak? Tong Ziqing's words completely voiced out the doubts in Yiqing Luo's heart. Tong Ziqing didn't understand why Yiqing Luo risked being found out by the high profound class students to save Kitty Lee. Moreover, Yiqing Luo was seriously injured by Yiqing Chen's earth profound grade pressure, and all this was because of Kitty Lee. If it wasn't for Kitty Lee, Yiqing Luo wouldn't be seriously injured, and wouldn't be tested by Yiqing Chen, and wouldn't be punished by the instructors to tidy up the books in the library pavilion, and wouldn't be so helpless when facing the killers. Yiqing Luo's current reputation in the academy made her angry. If it wasn't for the assistant class monitor who had been persuading everyone, she might not be able to hold it in and directly beat up those people who were spreading rumors. Kitty Lee let go of Yiqing Luo's arm, tilted her head and blinked her bright and crafty eyes, because Kitty Lee is hungry. Hungry? What kind of excuse was that? Everyone couldn't believe it, but Kitty Lee explained seriously. Kitty Lee was locked in that lousy forest the minute she arrived at Nirvana Realm, and had nothing to eat. Kitty Lee has been hungry for a long time. As she said that, she used her hands to gesture to open it up, and repeated, "so long" several times. Kitty Lee is so hungry that she can't move, how would she have the energy to run? That group of ferocious people couldn't see how cute Kitty was, so they beat Kitty up without any explanation. Kitty Lee's pink lips pouted slightly, showing some displeasure. If it wasn't for Big Sister saving Kitty Lee, those people would definitely want to bring Kitty Lee back to cook. Everyone was dumbfounded. What a heavy taste. Nowadays, even if there were people who ate human flesh, these students wouldn't dare to eat it in the academy. It was also because of these shocking words that the students did not pay much attention to the meaning of the words, "just arrived in the Nirvana realm," that Kitty Lee said. Ahem. Among the students, Baiming Lulu raised her hand weakly. Kitty didn't lie. When you brought her back, apart from the superficial wounds on her body, she did have an empty stomach for a long time. Tong Ziqing's expression became even more ashen. She stared at Kitty Lee for a long time before she snorted coldly and turned around to walk towards the small path of the academy. Kitty Lee, don't take it to heart. Sister Ziqing is just jealous of you. And Ruo Pan looked at the direction where Tong Ziqing left and couldn't help but laughed. Now the one who worships Madame Qing Luo the most is Sister Ziqing. Now that she saw you monopolizing Madame Qing Luo, she doesn't feel good. Kitty Lee smiled till her eyes curved and once again held onto Yiqing Luo's arm. I want to form a contract with Sister, and in future I will not let go of Sister. Yiqing Luo was helpless. She wasn't a man to be snatched here and there by two beauties out of jealousy. Could it be that she wanted to kill both men and women? Activate the 3 palace and 6 courtyards mode. Chapter 417. Alright, the academy doesn't know how many students there are in the devil class. Since Kitty Cat is here, then stay in the devil class. Yiqing Luo rubbed Kitty Cat's head. She knew Kitty Cat's real identity, so naturally she believed in Kitty Cat's innocence. Although the beastmen were half human half beast, but to Old Man Song, the beastmen basically lived alone and would not intentionally blend into the human world. Deep in their bones, they still had the purity of the beastmen. It's time for training, go ahead and train. Yiqing Luo was about to head towards the academy's small path when another student called out to her from behind. Qing Luo, I heard that. You've already agreed to the inter-class competition 8 months later, is that true? That student stared at Yiqing Luo eagerly as his hands were clasped together, extremely nervous. When the surrounding students heard this topic, the atmosphere instantly ignited. As Yi Qing Luo was seriously injured and was assassinated by the killer, these students stayed in the academy today to ensure that Yi Qing Luo was safe and sound. Because of that, they didn't know what happened in the academy today. The moment they heard the words interclass competition, the students' expressions changed. Interclass competition. This was a competition that all the classes wanted to participate in with all their might. If they were successful, they would be able to advance to a higher level class and obtain generous rewards, as well as receive the respect and admiration from everyone in the academy. More importantly, this was a proof of ability. For so many years, Devil Class's students had been hiding in the Devil Class, immersing themselves in cultivation and training to advance. Even if it was actual combat training, it would be one's own people fighting against one's own people. There was no sense of satisfaction at all. As for the Heavenly Academy's annual interclass competition, Devil Class's students wanted to take part in it so much that they almost went crazy. However, their class monitor had always rejected their requests with the excuse that the time wasn't right. Today, upon hearing that Yi Qing Luo had agreed to the interclass competition 8 months later, all of them jumped up in joy, as though they wanted to leap 3 feet into the air. I have indeed agreed to it. Yi Qing Luo lightly curled her lips. After the students got her affirmation, they couldn't suppress the excitement in their hearts as they rushed forward and surrounded Yi Qing Luo. Just as everyone wanted to lift Yi Qing Luo up and shout excitedly, they heard Yi Qing Luo spitting out 2 words. But everyone's hearts were in their throats as they stared at her. As for whether I can participate or not, firstly, I still need to seek the class monitor's approval. Secondly, I still need to see if the class monitor from class Shen Tu Xia can agree to my request. Thirdly, Yi Qing Luo paused for a moment. Her voice suddenly became much louder and revealed a tone like she was trying to abduct a little brother. This is the most important point, is within these 8 months, can your strength reach the level of surpassing the high profound class and win first place in one fell swoop? When the third point was mentioned, the smiles on all the students' faces gradually froze. All of them fell silent. If they were to win against the intermediate profound class or tie with the high profound class, they would have full assurance and confidence. But to surpass the high profound class and win first place, one must know if the Devil Class really won the championship. The Academy would definitely allow the powerful and mysterious Devil Class to participate in the competition. Chapter 418. If Devil Class won, it would be equivalent to smearing the Heavenly Academy's name. Their original thoughts were merely to take part in the interclass competition, to go through actual combat with the students from other classes, to raise their own ability. To them, promotion or ranking wasn't important at all. What they wanted was to prove to the entire Academy's teachers and students that they weren't waste, and that they were strong enough to support the heavens. That was all. But Yi Qing Luo's target was to win the championship. This to them was an extremely huge pressure. Yi Qing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see the difficulty on their faces as her voice remained calm. If you have the confidence, then work hard to raise your own training in these 8 months. Lu and I will refine supplementary medicinal pills for you, and in terms of training, it will depend on your individual hard work and innate talent. The students became silent. They had no confidence. Do you know why I insist on you winning the championship? Just as the training grounds were in a state of silence, Yi Qing Luo's clear and melodious voice rang leisurely. The students raised their heads as they looked at Yi Qing Luo. Whereas at the other end of the training grounds, Xiao Jin and Yen Xiaoyi didn't make a sound. In their hearts, Devil Class's students indeed had great growth, which was comparable to the High Profound class, but in terms of actual combat training and strategy, they were far from the High Profound class. Locking these students in Devil Class to train had its pros and cons. Just like previously, they limited these students to raising their individual ability, but neglected everyone's ability to work together as a team. Now there was another huge problem placed in front of them. The only actual combat training for these students, other than their classmates, was the magical beasts in the Heavenly Training Forest. If they were to take part in the interclass competition to win the championship, it was probably impossible. Because you are Devil Class's students. Yi Qing Luo's gaze was as calm as still water without a single ripple. Her tone was also calm, but in that tone, there was something indistinctly following her voice, scuttling their hearts. Devil Class is Heavenly Academy's disgrace, a waste class in everyone's eyes. If you want to clear your name to announce to the entire continent or even Nirvana realm that you are not waste, the only way is. It's fine if you don't cry out, but once you cry out, it's shocking. The students' hearts seemed to have been struck by something fiercely as they trembled slightly. Yiqing Luo's expression was indifferent and her tone was very calm. However, for some unknown reason, those 9 simple words caused their hearts to surge with excitement. The reason why I agreed to the interclass competition proposed by class monitor Xia is because I believe in you guys. Even I haven't given up on you, so why would you give up on yourselves? What is your dream? What was the target? You just want to be in the limelight during the interclass competition and suppress the other classes to prove that devil class isn't trash? What happens after that? Get beaten up by the students from the high profound class and the class of gods and return to the devil class? Is this enough to prove his name? No. It doesn't count. If they were defeated by the high profound class or class of gods, their so-called reputation would just be a joke. In the end, he suffered a crushing defeat and left the arena with his tail between his legs. Was it enough to surpass the intermediate profound class? No. They were not satisfied. How could he be satisfied? After being a waste for so many years, he finally managed to get into the Heavenly Academy but was assigned to a waste class where even the masters looked down on him. Just to surpass the intermediate profound class, how could he be satisfied? As long as you have a strong belief, believe in your own self-confidence, have your own target, and want to become a strong person who is revered by others, then give me a good answer. That you're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.